So, good morning from me. We are going into June 2020, and a good evening to my other beautiful attendees today who are still in May 2020. But this is our Love for Humanity free event. We have these every morning at the beginning of the week. For some people, it's at the end of the week on the Sunday afternoon, evening, and for us in Australia and this side of the world, it is Monday morning. So thank you very much for joining us. What I do is I'm actually given topics that we are meant to be discussing. I do work very closely with guidance from the universe, and the information that comes through is to help us as humanity to move forward, which we are needing right now as we are moving pretty much just into the 6th month of 2020, and it is crazy. Now, the thing is that for each one of us, what's happening at the moment or what's happened this year, we have all been affected very differently. So it's the concept of us being in all of this together. Yes, it is happening everywhere, or everyone is being affected somehow, but we are all being affected differently. So I think it's really important to look at the awareness that we are all, yes, we are all in this together, but we are all affected differently. But when it comes to we are all in this together, what I see that is happening this year is this year, even so far, cannot be so crazy for no reason. And what I've been shown is it's the year that humanity had to wake up and change. I know a lot of people, especially with the COVID-19 isolation experience, a lot of people had their own awarenesses about how they wanted to change their lives and what they wanted to start to see in their own lives, what they wanted to change, and what they how they wanted to live. So when we're moving into the second half of the year, we really don't know what we're in for as we're moving into this next stage. And at the end of the day, we really don't know how to handle what's going on. And so what this call is all about is what we can do, and how we can move through this, but also be able to adapt and to relate and to do something about the change that is coming. And adapting is something that I will definitely start to focus on in this call, because as humans, we are created to be adapting to anything. If you look back to the traditional scientific theory of evolution, we started as single cell organisms in the ocean, and through adaptation and through evolution, we have changed into these beings that we are today. And so when you look at what's happening this year, adapting is what we have to do to survive. And that's really what's been happening for so many years, is that we have been in survival mode. And what we need to do is we need to start looking at how we can make a change, not only in our own lives, but also in other people's lives. So we need to look at 2020, the year that helped humanity to wake up and change. The way that we can start to look at how we can adapt that into our own lives is simply looking at the things that we can take as messages and guidance for ourselves. So when you look at the things that are going on in your own life in this experience, you need to look at a lot of different things. So the first thing that comes through is really, looking at how you can actually help in these situations. We all have this, what I call this inner GPS, this inner guidance, and we will all be given guidance as to what we can do through these experiences. And you might find that it might be a feeling, it might be a thought, it might be a vision, it might be something. But there, you are given something that you can do through these experiences. And I think what traditionally we would do in the past is looking at what we can't do, where we're stuck, where we're in fear. And this is the difference, and this is where we need to look at the difference of being, especially if we're wanting to make a change, to help everyone get through these next evolutionary shifts and the waking up. So it's literally looking at how we can change from being in survival, because you can't be in survival and thriving and growth at the same time. And this is where we actually are guided to make a choice and to wake up, is that we have to, if we really want to get through this period, being in survival mode will not help us. We have lived in survival mode for many generations, and this is where this year, the year 2020, will be the year that we are here to unpack all the programming that we have learned over the generations of our existence here on the planet. Any past learning, but also this ancestral lineage of pain and survival, and just the fighting and the separation is really where we're meant to be moving past and into a different way of being, which is moving into being the change we need to see and the change that we want to see. But the first thing is that we need to see who we really are and what is really happening. So I really love what's come through in the conversation before we came on live on the call, is we have this concept somehow that everything has to be good for it to be a good life or a happy life or what have you. But in 2020, what we're moving into is a time where whatever happens, we need to see that it's facilitating something for us. There's something that we can get from it to move out of survival into growth and expansion and evolutionary change. And this is where we need to use everything that's happening to move us forward. We need to be moving forward, not going backwards. And what I urge everyone to do right now is look at how we would traditionally deal with these things. How would we traditionally deal with things like this in the past, and how can we do things differently? Because if we keep repeating the same things from the past, the same reactions, the same experiences, the same way of dealing with what's happening, we will not change from being in survival. We will be still stuck in survival mode, and we will keep repeating these same patterns. And 2020 is going to be the year that we need to wake up and look at these things. But how do we know what they are, and how do we know where to change? So the first thing to do is to look at all these following things. And if you want to grab a pen and paper, I do have a bit of a list of things that you can start to look at for yourself that will help you to start to be the change that you want to see in this external world, and not repeat patterns that we have repeated for generations and generations in coping with life and these things that life is throwing at us. So the first thing is, we initially, when things are bad or wrong, we go into fear. And that is a natural human reaction. It is an instinct. However, and especially from experiences I've personally had over the last 12 months, I would say, I have learnt that being in survival and allowing those natural instincts to control our reactions to things, they actually don't work, and they're the things that are going to kill us. I know that if I allowed those things to take over my own way of reacting, if you want to say, in these experiences, I probably would not be here. And so, but I had the awareness that I had to look at all these other elements while these things were happening to actually decide to choose a different reaction to what is going on. And this is what really makes the difference, is that we are able to have this choice when we move into change, and we have to again be the change we want to see. So looking at first off what you can do, we've talked a lot in our other group, our mastermind group, what else is possible in this situation? What can I do? Initially we go into I can't do anything, or I'm helpless, hopeless, powerless in this situation. But what we're doing is we're actually moving into a time where we need to do something. And if we're coming from that place of I can't do anything, that then allows fear and also the ability for us to be controlled in these experiences. And really, I'm hoping that I can get this message through, that the element of being controlled needs to change right now. We need to look at what's going on and be able to be reacting in a way that is helping us and not hindering us. So if we go into looking at how we can help, all of a sudden we're not in the powerless, the helpless, or being controlled. We can actually do something. Now, if everyone, there's nearly 8 billion people on the planet, said, how can I help here? Then we will see a very different reaction. But again, if we're saying, well, how can we help? Well, we've done that before. How do we make a difference? How do we help? The first thing to do is looking at our own behaviors. How are we behaving right now? And you'll see that a lot of these things that I'm bringing up today, cue the burp, again, which means hopefully we're shifting collective energy as I'm burping. And if I yawn and burp, that means that's just what's happening. We need to go into awareness, and this is what waking up means, is that we are waking up and we are aware of what's happening and what we can do about it and how we are reacting to it, which will ensure the longevity of humanity. So if we're moving into these different times, we've got to look at how we are reacting and how we're behaving. And what we can do is, as we tune into our own inner guidance, it'll actually help us to really look at our behaviors. Are we going into fear, or are we going into expansiveness and growth and making a difference? And this is where, when you feel into either one, you will feel the difference as to which one you're going into. So the first thing that's helping us to wake up is looking at our behaviors and how we're reacting to what's actually going on, and whether it's helping us or whether it's hindering us. And that's the first thing we really need to do. The next thing is to look into our thoughts. And as I often talk about, our thoughts are just thoughts. They don't have to be true or real. Our thoughts come from a place of what I call the egoic mind. Now the ego is not bad. The ego is here to help us to live and survive. But the egoic mind actually, it acts from that place of survival. It is its job to keep you alive. But what I've experienced in the last 12 months is that it's not really working as well as we could hope. And so when you look at your thoughts, if you're aware and waking up to your thoughts and what those thoughts are saying, I want you just to realize that they are just thoughts, and you are the one that can decide if they are something that you want to be true, or if you would like a different thought to be true. Now, when you look at, and I've done a lot of work around ourselves as magnets, and how energetically on this planet, we are the ones who can be affecting our external realities, simply because everything is energy, and what is going on around us is affected by what's going on within us. And so if we are having thoughts that aren't helping us, then you will start to find that you can't really do much in this external world to make a difference. You can't really do much to help when you're allowing your thoughts just to be going without you being aware of them. So just being aware of your thoughts, and if they are thoughts that you don't necessarily want to be moving you forward into these next steps of evolutionary change, you need to then just say, well, they are just thoughts that I'm having, and which thoughts do I want to be taking with me to be helping not only myself, but also helping, the people around me, the people on the planet. What thoughts are going to be helping me to move forward? And you can be the observer of your thoughts, and you can then decide which thoughts you would like for you to maintain and create and to keep within you, and then which thoughts are simply just thoughts, and they don't actually have to be real or true. So it's actually up to you, and we are going into a stage now where part of the waking up is that we have the choice now as to which thoughts we want to decide are true and which ones are just simply thoughts from the egoic mind that will keep us in survival. Now, again, as I said, we cannot be in survival and in growth at the same time. So we can actually make those decisions. Now, usually then again, thoughts, and this is the next thing we need to be aware of, and that's helping us to wake up, is our feelings. And usually thoughts are connected to our feelings. So if we aren't aware of a thought that is holding us back, then your feelings will let you know. I call our feelings the wake up call. They are the alarm bells that are saying, wake up. So if you have feelings right now that you don't like, it's because these feelings are trying to wake you up out of the sleep that you're in and the treadmill that is just going on over and over and over again that you do not know about. But also they could be pre-programming, it could be past, ancestral lineage, it could be anything that you aren't aware of, and your feelings will try and wake you up to try and get you to look at these things. And so when you notice these feelings, especially if they are bad feelings, the worse the feeling is, the more that your inner GPS is wanting you to wake up to try and look at something. So when the feeling is there, if you can observe the feeling, very similar to the thought, and then allow it, like breathe into it, feel into it, allow it to come in. And then when you allow that to all come in and to all happen, you will start to go into deeper awareness and a deeper consciousness around what is actually going on. And you will then again start to tune into this inner GPS and this inner guidance that is actually helping you to move forward. So the bad feelings are not bad. They're actually here to help you. And if we could all remember that, especially when those feelings are extremely bad, and start to use them, they are the thing that is going to help us to wake up and change. And we need to really use them, especially feelings of anger or frustration. It's coming from a place of, I can't do something, I can't do anything. And what we need to do is we need to be tuning into what we can do if we're going to be making a difference here. And so those feelings of helplessness or hopelessness or fears or whatever is telling you that there is a story going on, that you can't do something, or that you are being controlled by something. And we want to be changing this, right? So this is where these feelings are incredibly important. And I think if we can use these to help us to wake up, and also if you're noticing that other people are experiencing these feelings, we've got all the guys, thanks Belinda, on Facebook, lots of love hearts, thank you. Definitely using these feelings. And if you're noticing that other people have these feelings, trying to get them to also remember, this is helping you. These feelings are helping you to see what's going on within you that you don't know about. And we do have, we only have access to 5% of our conscious mind. We are only in 5% consciousness. There is 95% of unconsciousness or subconscious going on within us. And we need to wake up to what that is. And the only real way we can is through our feelings. So our feelings are the direct access not only to our subconscious thoughts and to help us to access those, which is such a godsend, but it also helps us to get access to our soul wisdom and to our inner GPS to help us to know which way to go forward and what we can do. Which brings up our next thing, which is looking at and being aware of our reactions to things. So we have our actions and what we actually do, but then when we have these reactions, again, most of our reactions usually are from a place of survival, because that's when our natural instincts kick in. But we do and we are getting access to a deeper consciousness, which helps us to use a different instinct, which is again the inner tuition, the intuition, which is helping us to know how we can move forward into a place of expansion and growth rather than being in survival. And we're very, very lucky that if we can tune into reacting from that place, then we will actually move out of survival and into growth and expansion, not only for ourselves and for all of us, but everyone. Belinda said, imagine when we could access more love. Thank you for showing a way towards that. Definitely. And we can all do all of this. So literally our reactions, we need to look at our reactions and being the observer. I can't stress enough, being the observer of our reactions to things is really important. And to be able to sit with these things, sit with our reactions and saying, is this what I want to see in the world, this reaction? If I'm reacting in this way, is this, what I want everyone else to be reacting from? Now, speaking from my own heart and looking at, my own reactions, I want to be seeing more love out there. So I need to be reacting from a place of love. And it has to, and that is always for me, the inner GPS, that's that inner side of me that says, if that's what I want to see more of in the world, I need to be reacting from that place. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when you tune into the element of love, it's actually not very passive. And people might think that when you turn up from a place of love, that you're not going to make a big difference and that it's a passive way of turning up. But love is the strongest force in the universe, and you actually do not know how powerful it is when you turn up from a place of love, but also how others pick that up. We are all collective energy. We're all source energy. We are all from the same place. We are all energy and we all pick up each other's stuff. So again, when we're reacting, and I don't know about you guys, but I've personally had the experience through awareness of picking up others' reactions. And it's really easy to pick up others' reactions and then to be reacting from that place as well. And then realizing, like I had to sit with myself one time when I realized I don't normally react this way. And then again, the inner tuition said to me, it said, because you've just picked that up from someone else. And I went, wow, that's a great awareness. And then I could just beautifully give that energy back with love and then come back to love, which we then, when we react from love, that is what we're going to get back. And if we're wanting to make a big difference here in the world, we want to be spreading love. I know it sounds cheesy, but we want to be spreading love and seeing more love. And the thing is that if that's the world we want, that is how we need to react. Now, love is expansive, love is growth, and love is not acting from survival. So definitely looking at your reactions and whether they are from survival and me, and it's about me, and I have to save myself, to just everyone being love and how I can turn up as love. To be honest, also, when you turn up as love and act and react from a place of love, you feel good. If I can say that. If you're turning up from any other place other than love, you will feel bad. And again, that's this inner tuition, this inner GPS that's actually helping you to move forward. But not only helping you, it's helping you to help others on the planet to move forward. So if you don't feel good, looking at your thoughts, looking at your feelings, and then looking at your reactions, and this is where the inner tuition and the inner GPS is actually saying, you're just off track from doing what you're meant to be doing, which is helping to facilitate some level of change and for us to all wake up and to start to help each other. So this is where also we can look at our surroundings and say, okay, once I've dealt with this inner head feelings, my reactions, my behaviors, now looking at what I'm seeing in the external world around me. Now, it's extremely important because all of us live in different countries. We all live in different states. We all live in different cities, and we are all dealing with different experiences. And I think once we realize this, because I think a lot of people can be looking at others' experiences from a place of how it looks to them. And the first thing we need to do is looking at our own surroundings and realizing that how things look to us is actually not the same as how it looks to other people. Even in this scenario, when you might look at your close surroundings and then say, okay, so let me look at what's happening in this area that I live in, but then look at, okay, whatever's happening around the world, it is different to everyone, and we need to look at our own surroundings, but then also looking at the greater world and realizing that not everyone is experiencing these things from exactly the same place. So the first thing we need to do, cue the burp again, the first thing we need to do is looking at our surroundings and then saying, how can I make a difference in my own surroundings? Now, as I said, everyone's got different experiences going on, and everyone is dealing with different experiences. So the first thing we need to do when we're dealing with our own surroundings is understanding that even though the people in your town, in your state, in your country, may be dealing with the same thing as you, they see them very differently to you. And the way you see things is not going to be that same way that others see things. So we need to listen. We need to listen and understand that not everyone sees things the same way. And maybe we can ask some questions around our surroundings and looking at, okay, so what's happening in these surroundings around me? And then asking people how this is affecting them, not how they should be reacting, not how they should be feeling, and not how they should be thinking, but getting them to tune into themselves and actually saying, asking them how they are feeling, how they are thinking, and how they're wanting to react. And getting them to be, again, more aware of their own feelings and their own thoughts, and asking more questions. And I find, again, if as we're moving into this new evolutionary stage, we don't need to fix anything. We don't need to really change anything. We just need to ask the questions to help everyone to connect to their own inner power. And the only way we can do that is through each person having their own awareness. There is nothing, it's like saying to someone, or they make a joke, it's like saying to someone who's never been on a roller coaster that this is what a roller coaster looks like, or that's what a roller coaster feels like, but they've never been there. You can't actually tell people how they need to feel or how they need to think when they've never actually had a different experience other than the one that they are having right now. So this is where they have to, if anything, if you can actually help others to look at themselves and look at what they can actually do for themselves, not how they should be thinking or feeling or reacting. And what happens, hopefully, like today, what I have done by asking you to go within and look at all these things, is that hopefully what we can all do is tune into this place within ourselves where we can do something, not from a place of survival and about me, but just from a place of, I just love being on this planet and I love everyone being who I am with. on the planet. And there's a very, very different thoughts, feelings, and reactions when we come from that place. So looking at our surroundings, looking at our neighborhoods, how can we listen? How can we ask more questions? And knowing that we don't have to fix anything, but we just need to listen to each other and try and understand that people are coming all from different places, even though we may be dealing with the same things. But also understanding the world at large is actually dealing with very different things. And if we can again look within ourselves to see how we're looking at our surroundings and the greater world, and how we're looking at others, and being more aware of how we're doing that, and not having any judgment, but just listening and understanding, will help us to move forward and to move through all of this. And then the next thing is actually how we're speaking. So I always know personally that if I'm not speaking from my inner tuition and from love, that people will always tell me. So I'm very grateful to have people around me who will tell me that I don't always speak from that place. But again, if you aren't able to connect to that place, or able to have people around you who can help you to connect to the fact that how you're speaking is not helping yourself or anyone, is by, again, using your feelings. And when you're speaking, speaking from a place of love, as I said, asking more questions, asking how people are, how they're reacting, how they're feeling, and how they're thinking, and looking at how you speak and how we speak. I mean, how we speak is how we turn up in the world. And I'm also going to add in there how you write as well. How you write, how you speak. We're moving into a place and a time where we need to be aware of these things. Now, it's not to say that you need to what's the word, like just kind of judge how you're speaking, or watch how you're speaking, but it's more awareness of what you're saying, and is that helping? And I think always with all of this is this helping? I always used to say, does that work for you? For me, I always used to say, if there's something that's working, keep doing it. If it's not working, look for something else, and that's going to help you. So this is where, in this case, what we can be doing is when we're speaking, is this helpful? What we're speaking, what we're saying. Again, making sure we don't come from a place of judgment. And I do know, if there is judgment, or if there is anything else going on within us, and we're being made aware of it, we do need to look at the way that we're speaking, because it's usually how we speak to ourselves. And this is really important, especially if we're being made aware of what we're saying. Is it's usually the way that we speak to ourselves, and the way that we speak to ourselves is usually how we speak to others. And also we have this inner monologue going on, which, how are we thinking about others with this inner voice that's speaking? And again, the thing that will help us to know how we're speaking, if that's helpful, is our feelings. Our feelings will tell us if how we're speaking is helpful, or if our inner voice is being helpful. And what we're doing is helpful is through our feelings. So that'll actually make a massive difference. The next thing that I really want us to be aware of is our relationships. And the first relationship we do need to be aware of is our relationship to self. Again, if we're wanting to see change, if we're wanting to see more helpful people in the world, helping others during these times, if we're wanting to see peace, or whatever we want to see in the external world, we need to be ourselves. The saying of be the change you want to see is definitely how this all works. And whatever we're seeing internally, the way we're speaking to each other, the way we're speaking to ourselves, will be a reaction to how we actually see ourselves and our relationship to ourselves. So this is extremely important when we're moving forward and waking up, is that we need to look at our relationship to ourselves. Abby. Thanks, guys. We've got Sarah, we've got Michelle. So we need to look at our relationship to ourselves and make that one of the most important relationships that we have, because the way we have our relationship with ourselves is the way that we have the relationship with the world. And I think especially when we go into wanting to make a difference and helping others, is we forget ourselves. And sometimes when we forget ourselves is that we can become quite anxious, we can become quite annoyed or angry or frustrated when we're not coming from a place of making sure our relationships with ourselves are okay and putting ourselves last because we're wanting to make a difference externally. We actually have to start to look at our own relationships with ourselves and making sure that that's actually okay, and that, again, how we speak to ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, and the way that we're, talking to ourselves every day is more important. The other thing that I wanted to mention, it's something that was a really interesting recent awareness that I had the other day, is, say for example, because I've been doing this work for a while, is that I was feeling flat. And I remembered that feeling flat, if I'm feeling flat, then that's my feelings telling me that there's something that I can't see, and there's something that I need to know. And as soon as I had the awareness that I was feeling flat, and that was just my inner tuition telling me that there's something I needed to know. The first thing that came through when I had the awareness was, Kim, you're just operating from survival again. And I just realized that we don't need to do that anymore, and we're allowed to have a choice. And as soon as I had the awareness that feeling flat or anxious or scared or what have you, and when you have the awareness that you're operating from a place of survival, you can then make a choice. And so what happens is, we just, well, everyone has a choice again, but what I think will make a difference, and this is what the Love for Humanity, movement and project is all about, is, how we can make a difference. But firstly, we have to make a difference in our own lives, and our relationship with ourselves is the most important. Now, in the past, our relationship with ourselves has usually been from a place of survival. And how can I get through this? How can I get what I want? How can I, have the life that I want? How can I have everything that I need? But moving forward, when we're coming from a place of love, we actually just want to be kind to ourselves. And that's the first thing we need to look at, is just being kind to ourselves, and being aware of those inner voices, and how we talk to ourselves is the most important thing if we want to actually have really good relationships. And when we've got great relationships, now when I say great relationships, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have tizzies. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have uncertain times where you're not sure really what's happening. But every time these things happen, there's always an opportunity for growth when there is an issue in your own relationship with yourself and also your relationship with others. And this is one of the biggest points I want to get across, is things aren't always going to be easy. Things aren't always going to be good. But whenever things, and this is what I have to rely upon 100%, is whenever anything is bad, it means that there's something that we need to know and that we can learn and grow from it. So you can kind of get to the point where things may be bad, that we can say, there's a great learning here. There's something that I can take from it. And again, our inner tuition will actually help us through that process. And this is one of the biggest things that I really want to get across to everyone, is if we can start to use the bad as helpful, and starting to use it to move forward, because that's what I found has worked more so than it being bad and then taking us down the spiral of bad. Let's use it to be better. Let's use the bad to grow and evolve rather than to slip into survival mode. And again, our inner tuition, this feelings inside of us, we really have to use them, because they are the steps forward that are going to help us through all of this. And this is where your relationship with yourself needs to be pretty strong. You need to to know yourself inside and out, and always be knowing, always be learning, always be growing, and tuning into yourself, tuning into your thoughts, tuning into your feelings, and make that one of the most important things that you do every day to make sure you're okay, so that when you're showing up in the world, you can show up for others in your own relationships, in your own friendships, in your own experiences with others. You can come from that place of whatever's going on within you. You can be solid and make sure that you spread that solid love experiences external to you. And that's what they will end up being. So that's really important to make sure, first off, that your own relationship with yourself is important, and then going on to making other relationships in your life important. They always say that when you're on a deathbed, it's not the things that you have and what you've achieved that you think about. It's always about the relationships, and relationship to self and relationship to others is one of the most important things that you can be aware of while we're moving forward. So the next thing that I want to actually highlight here is also our physical well-being, looking at not only how we're treating ourselves emotionally, but also physically. So our physical well-being is very important when we're dealing with uncertainty and we're dealing with, waking up and the change that we want to see in the world. And so the physical well-being will include, am I getting enough sleep? Very, very basic stuff. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough water? Am I eating enough healthy, fresh available food? Am I able to exercise? And in these times, sometimes it might be a little bit difficult, but just, getting some fresh air, getting your face out in the sun. Your physical well-being is incredibly important if you do want to be able to be helpful, not only to yourself, but to others mainly as well. So your physical well-being is something that you need to be aware of and wake up to. And our physical well-being, this is the vehicle that's helping us to do these things here. This is extremely important, this physical vehicle that we're in, to actually be here to make a difference and to help others. So we need to take care of it, because if you can't use it, and if you can't maintain that health as you're moving on, then you can't really show up how you can show up. Then, of course, Stephen Hawking jumps into my mind, and it's not necessarily a resistance to making a difference and turning up in the world, but it certainly helps to look after that physical well-being. So looking at all those elements, we need to look at also any past trauma that may be triggered through these experiences that are going on. Now, I'm not talking about just your own trauma. We have ancestral trauma from the past, previous generations, that we are also carrying with us, but for us to wake up and make a change, not only in this generation and this life, but for future generations. It's incredibly important that we deal with the trauma that not only we have dealt with in the past, that we're dealing with right now, but also any trauma that our families have dealt with in the past. And it's probably a good idea, if you want to do that, to have a look at your family trees, having a look at what your family has gone through, and I'm sure you can easily do that just by, again, asking more questions and listening to what's happened in the past. You'll start to see there are patterns in families. There are patterns in things that we bring with us. And it's time to unpack them all and to start to create different realities and different futures, not only for ourselves, but for these next generations and for the planet, if we want it to really survive moving forward. Looking at your own basic human rights. If we want human rights on the planet to be one of the most important things that we want to see change, especially as we're moving into uncertain times of control or fear-based experiences, especially the uncertainty that we're moving into. 2020 is the year where we really need to look into the fact of our basic human rights. And our basic human rights are stemming from, these basic elements of fresh water, fresh food, having a choice, equality, and there's a long list of basic human rights that, if these basic human rights aren't catered for in our own lives, then that creates inner trauma. And basic human rights is something that's one of the most important things that you can ever look at from a place of awareness and waking up. So if you can start to channel into moving into the past, looking into the past and where your own basic human rights have been jeopardized, and also looking at your current human rights and where they may be jeopardized, you'll find there will be trauma attached to that. And you need to look at what I can do about these basic human rights rather than what I couldn't do, because right now in this present moment is where we can do something. And this is where, with trauma, and especially past trauma, we can easily slip into powerlessness through past trauma, not only our own but our ancestral trauma. And when we slip into that, we do go into powerlessness and helplessness, which takes us back into survival. Now, I can tell you 100%, when you're in survival, you will feel fear. And as soon as fear shows up, we need to acknowledge that fear has shown up for it to wake us up that we are back in survival and back in trauma. And the trauma needs to be looked at, and the trauma needs to be acknowledged for us to be able to move forward. And there's no more sweeping it under the rug anymore. 2020 is the year that humanity has to wake up and change. And for us to do that, we need to look at what's going on in our realities. And if we are carrying anything from the past, that will be showing up right now, and it'll be triggering us, and it will actually be here to be calling us to making a change in that time and place. And the time and place is right now. If we want to actually make a difference, we need to be doing that right now. And these are the elements that we've been shown to be able to make the difference. So looking at what the world is showing you, looking at how we can unpack the programming, the learnings, the past learnings that just aren't our own inner tuition, this intuition that we naturally have, and looking at what we can do. So if we want to see more peace, if we want to be showing up in the world and making a difference and helping others through this time, and if we want to stop these patterns from continuing, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of the planet, then we definitely need to be the thing that we want to see, the change that we want to see. Whatever's going on within us, we need to be seeing in the external. So we've got a few people here. Girls, if any of you have any questions that I can tackle, I will unmute, or you can unmute yourself. Anyone have any questions here that you would like for me to deal with that other people may have later on? Just say in the chat box if you want to actually say anything or ask a question, because I'm sure lots of people will have questions, especially around what's going on in their own lives. Just to pop something in the chat box, and I'll unmute you and we can have a chat. But definitely now is the time to be making the difference and making the change. And the first thing is through awareness. When we talk about waking up, and for the planet to be waking up right now, we need to use these experiences through all these things, which is the behaviors, the thoughts, the feelings, the reactions, our surroundings, how we speak, is that helpful? And how we deal with our own relationships within ourselves and others, our physical well-being, looking at the trauma, looking at, our basic human rights, and starting to act from those places. And from these places, we can definitely start to be making a difference and using this year for our own advantages, and starting to use these experiences. Like I always say, things don't happen for no reason. And, so many people have been affected and touched in so many different ways. And through awareness, we can actually start to make a difference in our own lives and other people's lives as well through observation and awareness. So thanks guys for joining us today. Kristen says, thanks, I feel more empowered for change. Definitely change is what we need to see, but we need to look at, are we moving forward from a place of change and survival or growth and expansiveness? And that's what we always have the choice of doing right now moving forward. So you can join me every week this time for these free calls with Love for Humanity. If there's a topic that you would like me to cover, you can always reach out and send me a message or comment below, and I will tackle your topic in some of the future calls. And also, if you're wanting to join Love for Humanity, pop me a message. You can join for free, and there's lots of benefits for joining for free. There's lots of information that we're sharing through Love for Humanity, the movement and the project that we're working on. It's all based around this stuff. It's all based around, being the change we want to see, through acting from a place of love, through awareness, consciousness, and starting to, send love for humanity and moving forward. And then, of course, there's options for working privately in groups through Love for Humanity, and other advantages with helping others, and you can be doing this work as well. So message me if you're interested in doing this work and sharing this work with others and helping others in a more proactive way, because we have set that up through Love for Humanity as a vehicle to be able to be making a difference from all these places. So thank you everyone for turning up and showing up. And again, if you've got any other further questions, you can pop them below. I'll stay online and type up some answers and so forth. And also we'll be tackling more topics in the coming weeks, but definitely let's use what's happening right now to tune within. Let's use what's going on to be able to be showing up in our own lives how we want to show up. It was a great wake-up call the other day when I had that awareness. Thanks guys on Facebook. Having the awareness the other day when I was feeling flat, that I got the message, your brain is just in survival mode right now, Kim. And it was such a beautiful message to receive for me to go, wow, it really is. And to be able just to be the observer of the flatness and to be the observer of what was going on. And that's where we're going to be starting to wake up and moving forward as humanity, is to be the observer of what's going on and then look at making a change in our own lives as well as others' lives. The other thing I really do need to press forward is that everyone is born with a different perception of themselves and the world. And this is where it's really important for us to be understanding that not everyone will see what's going on right now the same way, and not everyone's going to be dealing with it the same way, even if they're having the same experience as you. Everyone has different perceptions. I have done a lot of work around incarnation blueprints and how we are all born with different blueprints. This is another topic I'm going into, which I could probably talk forever as well about, but we are all born with a different blueprint on how we see the world and we see ourselves, which then creates our realities when we're born. So we have to be understanding about how everyone else is dealing in this time, and how everyone else is reacting. And when we do that, then we can then be tuning into our own place of love. And can I say again, when you do turn up from a place of love and you're reacting and you're thinking and you're feeling from a place of love, when you're doing that because you feel frigging awesome. So the feelings will always be showing you what you're doing. And all I'm asking is for you to be aware, because 2020 is the year that humanity woke up. And you guys are actually, Abby is just saying, that's just the blueprint is part of our soul contract. It's the blueprint is our soul contract, definitely. And we all have different soul contracts, and this is what helps us to perceive and create realities. So, some of you guys are in the 5th month, I'm in the 6th month, moving forward, 1st of June here in Australia. So we've now got another 6 months to deal with in the year 2020. Let's see what we can do rather than what we can't do, and let's tune into these inner tuitions that we have, and start using the awarenesses, and using 2020 as the year that we woke up. Thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.